study day and night. Hmm. It will be good. Obviously, like ways. Hmm.
Sir, I have make you the co-host, sir. You can share the screen and start the class, sir.
Okay, okay. Perfect. So let's start, Vikas. So, yes. So, good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Abhijeet, and today, yes, we have, yeah, we have initiated a 90 days foundational life class for the university exams, right? And today the topic that I'm going to cover it is lipoproteins, a part of lipid chemistry only, right? And over here I will be discussing the entire topic in the form of Q&A, that is the question and answer format. The same way you will be having your prof exams, right? So I will be covering all the important questions, the volatile topics which I feel like they are important for the upcoming exams, right? So even the most expected topics will be covered. So I will be discussing a long essay type of question. I will be discussing the entire lipoprotein with you, right? I won't be discussing the metabolism. It will be like coming later on. But yeah, the general properties of the structure, the different lipoproteins, the functions, everything I will be covering up today. Even the short essay questions, either it can be 8 or 5 marks question, and we have the short answers, which can be like 3 or 2 marks. So in totality, I will be discussing like 5 questions, but that too in very, very detail, right? So yes, now guys, you already know in the Oracle app, we have the recorded classes, the live classes, the practical sessions, the exam module, and the hard copies book set. Hard copies book set, guys, you can order you will get it at your home only. So yeah, I personally believe like 2 months before the exam, if you start reading the textbook, it's a bit difficult. But if you have a concise, crisp, and conceptual notes, in which there are diagrams, legible diagrams are there. Yes, you can just go for it. So we have the recorded classes, the live classes, the express exam modules where I will be covering the entire syllabus is being covered under 20 hours, right? So even the answer writing skills we have like taught over there, right? So that is something you can just revise just before the exams, and there will be one-to-one doubt clearing session also, right? And we have the hard copy note set. Now we have the question bank from basic to advanced level, and you guys already know that yes, we have covered the previous 10 to 15, 10 to 12 years of questions from various university exams, even the NEET PG questions, the INI-CET exam questions, and we have created, like the expert faculty has created good clinical based questions also for you people, which I personally believe will be asked in with the concept of next exam, right? So yes, you can just go for it and practice that. So we have the practical sessions, guys. No other app will provide you with the same feature where we have the practical sessions which are being recorded, and you can just view it multiple times now before going on to the practical sessions, right? Exam. So we have the basic subscription plan, guys, the foundational plan, the advanced learning plan, the complete learning plan, and the ultimate MBBS plan, which is for the 4th year. So you can just use my code Dr. Abhijeet 20 for additional discounts, right? Now, guys, let us start with the very first question. Explain the structure, classification, and functions of lipoproteins. Discuss the role of LDL and HDL in lipid transport and their clinical significance. So now let us just try to understand firstly what is meant by a lipoprotein. So we are first going to understand the basic concept of lipoprotein. Concept of lipoprotein. Why do we need this, guys? Now, what is it? You already know, we have discussed yesterday that it is a compound lipid with proteins. It is a compound lipid with proteins, right? We have already discussed the classification of lipids yesterday. We have done simple lipids, we have done compound or complex lipids, then we have the derived lipids, and then we have the miscellaneous lipids. Now, this is basically a type of compound lipid that is like you guys already know, right? This is basically a type of compound lipid. And what is there? We have the lipid part, and along with the lipid, we have the protein part. So that's why it is called as lipoprotein. Now, now guys, let us just take an example over here. Now let us suppose that this is a blood vessel. Let me draw it with a red color. So the color coding, to maintain the color coding, guys. Yes, let us suppose that this is a blood vessel. Now, in this blood vessel, guys, we have the lipid part, right? We have the lipid part. Now, this lipid alone is not soluble in the blood. Alone is not soluble in blood. Now, the basic concept, the lipid alone is not soluble in the blood. Now, if I combine protein with this particular lipid, if I combine protein with this particular lipid, now let us suppose this is the protein. This is the protein. So what will happen, guys? This lipid plus protein, if they are combined together, so this is how we can transport lipid in the blood. We can transport lipid in the blood. So that is one of the structures, guys, that we have to mention over here. The lipid combined with the protein, that is called as lipoprotein. Actually, this helps in the transportation of lipid in the blood. Lipid alone cannot travel in the blood. It is not soluble in the blood. Just to make it transport, we are combining it with protein. Now, coming on to the structure of the lipoprotein, guys, the very first part that they have asked over here, the structure of lipoprotein. Structure of chylomicron beta, I will be coming. It's a lipoprotein only. It is a lipoprotein. Yes, Vikas Lamba, you're right, but we'll be just coming on to it also. Let us first discuss from basics structure of lipoprotein. Structure of lipoprotein. Now, guys, just try to understand that the lipoprotein has 3 layers. Very, very important, guys. It has 3 layers. And you have to mention each layer in detail. You have to mention each layer in detail. Now, we have the inner core, which is like in the center, the inner core. Then we have the second layer, and then we have the third layer, Now, guys, remember that the inner core, the central part of the lipoprotein, basically it is consisting of hydrophobic lipids. Very, very important. You already know that the lipids are water hating. Okay, they repel water. So they are not soluble in water. So the inner part of the lipoprotein, it is made up of hydrophobic lipids. Right? Now, when I say hydrophobic lipids, one of the examples that we have discussed yesterday, that is triacylglycerol, right? Triacylglycerol, or there could be one more example, guys, that you have to just mention. We have cholesterol esters. I will be discussing cholesterol in detail, but as of now, just remember, we have cholesterol esters also, right? We have cholesterol esters also. Now the second layer, guys, the second layer, remember that it is made up of, it is consisting of empathic lipids. Empathic lipids. Empathic lipids. Empathic lipids, guys, we have already discussed. It is phospholipids. Phospholipids. Or one more example, it is cholesterol. It is cholesterol. Beta, earlier, the inner core, we have the esters of cholesterol. But in the second layer, we have the cholesterol. Okay, we have the cholesterol. So it is consisting of empathic lipids. And the third layer again, it is very, very important. It is of proteins. It is of proteins. Now remember, guys, you already know the proteins over here. We either have peripheral proteins, which are situated like outside, the peripheral proteins, and we have the integral proteins. The integral proteins. Right? So we have the peripheral proteins and we have the integral protein. So that is the basic structure. Integral proteins such as ApoB100, apolipoprotein. I will be coming to it. No need to worry. From inner to the second layer and to the third layer, guys. You just have to mention inner, second, and third layer, right? So that is regarding the structure of a lipoprotein. You again, it makes sense, guys. The inner structure, the inner core, obviously it will be lipid only because lipid is not soluble in water. So obviously it cannot be in the periphery. Again, it cannot be in the periphery because obviously blood is a fluid, right? Extracellular fluid will be also there. Again, it makes sense, right? So you just have to use your brain and this will be automatically arranged up to your knowledge from yesterday, right? Now, guys, so this is the structure of the lipoprotein. Now they have asked the classification of lipoproteins. Now we have different lipoproteins, guys. Let us just try to make notes of it. The different lipoproteins that Vikas you have already mentioned one. The different lipoproteins. Now, what are the different lipoproteins that you have to remember? The very first one that Vikas you have already mentioned, we have the chylomicrons. The chylomicrons. Second, we have very low density lipoproteins. Very low density lipoproteins. Now, in short, guys, we'll be discussing it like in detail, guys. So VLDL, very low density lipoproteins. Now, I will be like discussing all this in detail, but as of now, just try to mention all the names first, right? We have the low density lipoproteins, low density lipoproteins, that is called as LDL. Then we have intermediate density lipoprotein, intermediate density lipoprotein. Yes, very good, Vikas. LDL, HDL. Yes, you also have to remember intermediate density lipoprotein. That is IDL. Then we have high density lipoprotein. High density lipoprotein. Right? That is HDL. And we have, okay, I will be lipoprotein X and lipoprotein A. I will be coming to this. Yes, we have lipoprotein X, we have lipoprotein A. So these are the various different types or the classification of the lipoproteins according to the question that is given, right? We have discussed the various types. Now let us just try to understand the functions of these lipoproteins one by one, right? Functions of these lipoproteins one by one. So let us just first focus on chylomicrons. Chylomicrons. Now, Remember, guys, the chylomicrons are the ones, they are the lipoproteins which are having the maximum size. Again, an important question from the MCQ point of view. It is having maximum size, right? Now, chylomicrons are nothing but lipoproteins only. They are lipoproteins that carry exogenous. Exogenous, when I say exogenous, it's from outside. Outside what you are consuming? Diet. So we have the dietary triacylglycerol from small intestine or simply from the intestine to peripheral organs of the body. To peripheral organs of the body, right? Now, what is the function? Whatever dietary triacylglycerol you have consumed, right? Now, what it will do, it will carry this triacylglycerol from the intestine to various parts of the body, right? To the pancreas, to other parts of the body, right? So they have maximum size, guys. And remember that they have minimum, or yes, just write like this. First, write like this. They have maximum lipid content. Okay, they have maximum lipid content. They have maximum size, they have maximum lipid content. Again, a very important MCQ that you have to remember over here, guys. They have the least density. They have the least density. Okay. Now, guys, when I say high density, okay, when I say more density means more protein content. Now we have a lipoprotein. If the lipid content is more, then it will be having least density. If in a lipoprotein, protein content is more, it is having more density, right? So that is something you have to remember. So yes, so obviously if it has the least density, it will be having the least protein content. Least protein content, and it is having maximum lipid content, so it is having maximum triacylglycerol. Maximum triacylglycerol, right? Now, what are the apolipoproteins? This again is very important. Yeah, let me just use another pen. Apolipoproteins. Vikas, can you tell me what is an apolipoprotein in the chat box? Yes, apolipoproteins present in chylomicron. It is very important that is being asked. Okay, no, not an issue. Okay, it is Apo B48. Okay, it is like the maximum one which is present, uniquely present. Okay, in chylomicron, it is uniquely. Again, the question, if they ask you the only apolipoprotein which is there in chylomicron, it is like Apo B48. I will be discussing it in metabolism part. Okay, other major apolipoproteins. So it can be ApoC2 and we have ApoCE. ApoE. ApoE. Just try to write this and give me a thumbs up that you have written this. Then we'll again. Okay. Okay. Vikas, okay. Now you already know that if we are talking about apolipoproteins, these are actually the lipoproteins which are present in the blood, okay, which are present in the serum, and which actually acts as a mediator of transfer of cholesterol, right? So yes, they are actually apolipoprotein is nothing but the protein part of the lipoprotein only. Like lipoprotein is lipid plus protein. So that protein, it is basically this ApoC2, ApoE, or ApoB48 or ApoB48, right? So that is one thing that you have to remember. And over here, the takeaway point, since the question says function, since I've discussed everything related to chylomicrons, so yes, coming on to especially the function of this lipoprotein, that is chylomicron, it carries the exogenous dietary triacylglycerol from intestine to the peripheral organs, to the peripheral organs. Hmm. Now, coming on to the next one, that is very low density lipoprotein. So I'm just mentioning 2 points which are like I feel important over here. So this lipoprotein, guys, it is assembled in liver. It is assembled in liver, right? And it carries, remember, it carries exogenous triacylglycerol from liver, especially guys, remember, from liver to peripheral organs, from liver to peripheral organs. So it carries the exogenous triacylglycerol, which is there in the liver, from the liver to other body parts, right? So that is the function of this, yeah, very low density lipoproteins and the apolipoproteins. If you ask me what is the major apolipoprotein that is present over here, it is very, very important. Apo B100, ApoC2. It can be repeated also, no need to worry. And guys, one more that is called as ApoE. ApoE. Now, coming on to the third one, that is the low density lipoprotein and the high density lipoprotein. They are very, very, very guys important. So I'll be taking it on other slide. And even the question also says discuss the role of LDL and HDL in the lipid transport and clinical significance. So I'm discussing it on another slide completely. Now, LDL basically stands for low density lipid. Low density lipoprotein. Now, this LDL, it is basically formed from very low density lipoprotein. It is formed from very low density lipoprotein. Now, guys, what happens? This VLDL, very low density lipoprotein, will form, yes, intermediate density lipoprotein, and from the intermediate density lipoprotein, low density lipoprotein will be formed. Now, this entire pathway from very low density lipid to intermediate density lipid lipoprotein, and from the intermediate density lipoprotein to low density lipoprotein, this entire pathway, guys, it is called as lipoprotein cascade pathway. Lipoprotein cascade pathway, right? So it contains, yeah, this is the lipoprotein cascade pathway. Now, the important takeaway points from this slide, guys, that this LDL, it is basically having maximum cholesterol and cholesterol ester contents, right? Now, okay, Because if you have heard from class 11th or 12th, the cholesterol present in the low density lipid lipoprotein, it is a good cholesterol or a bad cholesterol? Hmm. नहीं 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 नहीं. The high density lipoprotein wala is good. Over here, remember beta, that cholesterol present in low density lipoprotein, it is called as the bad cholesterol. Very, very important MCQ that you have to remember. It is called as the bad cholesterol. Okay. And the major apolipoprotein in low density lipid, apolipoprotein, okay, is only very, very important B100. It is the name that you have to remember. It is only B100. Right? Yes, yes. I got confused. It happens. No, not an issue. Right? So that is something that you have to like remember, that the low density lipoprotein, it is having the maximum cholesterol and cholesterol ester content. It is also called as the bad cholesterol. And the major apolipoprotein, it is only B100, right? So, and it is formed from very low density lipid lipoprotein, right? Now, coming on to the next one, that is the high density lipoprotein. High density lipoprotein. Now, remember, guys, it is formed from two places that you have to remember: intestine and liver, right? Now, the very, very important function of HDL, that is high density lipoprotein, and that we will discuss the entire cycle in detail in metabolism, that is reverse cholesterol transport. Function is reverse cholesterol transport, and this you have to mention in your exam if they ask you the function of lipoproteins. One of the high density lipoproteins, you are going to mention the function is reverse, yes, cholesterol transport. Now this is something which is called as good cholesterol. It is called as good cholesterol. Again, one important MCQ that you have to remember. Now when I say good cholesterol, guys, I'm talking that it will be having the least lipid content. Okay. Now it will be having maximum protein content. Maximum protein content. Or I can simply say the maximum apoprotein content. It will be having least lipid content. Least lipid content. It will be having least size. Least size. Now, obviously, the concept that I have given you earlier, that if there is, okay, if there is maximum lipid content, then we have the least density. Now we have the least lipid content, so we will have the maximum density. Maximum density. Obviously, you can remember the proteins are having high molecular weights, right? So that is something you have to remember. It is having the maximum density. It is having the maximum density, right? Apart from that, in one of the examination, they have simply asked one question that HDL is having maximum phospholipid. Maximum phospholipid. Phospholipid. Okay. Now the apolipoprotein over here. The apolipoprotein over here that you have to remember, it is ApoA1. Okay, ApoA1. Right? Now, try to remember one more thing what this HDL is doing, since it is very, very important. Let me take on to other slide and tell you that enzyme activity is also present over here. the enzyme activity present in HDL, it is LCAT, that is lecithin. Lecithin we have discussed yesterday. Now Vikas, tell me, lecithin is a simple lipid, compound lipid, derived lipid, or miscellaneous lipid? What is lecithin? Lecithin, cholesterol acyl transferase, and we have one more that is called as cholesterol. Yes, complex or compound lipid. Very good, Vikas. Cholesterol ester transfer protein. Now, just what is the use of this LCAT, guys? Now, if there is lecithin, now let us suppose if there is lecithin, it is also called as phosphatidylcholine. We have already discussed this yesterday. It is also called as phosphatidylcholine. Plus, we have cholesterol. Right? What will happen? This enzyme will act, LCAT, lecithin cholesterol acyl transferase, and what it will do? It will form, yes, the cholesterol ester plus lysolecithin, right? So that is something you have to remember about LCAT. Now, if you ask me about this second one, what is the function of this particular enzyme, cholesterol ester transfer protein? Now, what does it do, guys? It receives triacylglycerol from other lipoproteins. Now, when I say other lipoproteins, guys, I'm talking about intermediate density lipoprotein, low density lipoprotein, and from there it is being transported to HDL. If I just want to show you guys, if let us suppose this is HDL, okay. Now HDL is the one that transfers cholesterol ester, okay. Now this enzyme, this cholesterol ester transfer protein, what it will do, it will be like transporting this triacylglycerol to the low density lipids, the intermediate density lipids, right? Now, so that is regarding this, which you have to remember, right? So again, this HDL is going to receive this triacylglycerol from other lipoproteins like LDL and intermediate density lipids, right? So that is something you have to remember. So that was regarding the HDL wala part, right? High density lipid. So yes, high density lipoprotein, right? Now, guys, coming on to one of the lipoprotein that is being taught over here, that is lipoprotein A. So this lipoprotein has ApoA and ApoB100, apolipoprotein B100 and ApoA. Okay. Now, remember, guys, this ApoA and ApoB100, they are basically linked together by a disulfide bond, right? So yes, that is something you have to remember over here, right? Now, if we specifically talk about this ApoA, now one of the important functions, guys, that you have to remember, this ApoA, it is a structural analog. It is a structural analog of plasminogen. And remember, guys, this inhibits, as it you can see, it's a structural analog of plasminogen. It inhibits the clot lysis. Okay, the clot breakdown, right? So you already know if we take fibrin, right? And fibrin is basically converted to fibrin degradation product, fibrin degradation product, right? That is called as FDP with the help of plasminogen. Okay. This plasminogen basically converts into plasmin, and this basically acts on this, right? Now remember guys, this plasminogen, instead of acting on the plasmin, okay, it will act on lipoprotein A. It will act on lipoprotein A. Okay, then nothing will happen. Okay. Now the problem here is if the clot cannot be lysed, right? This is a risk for thrombosis. Okay, this is a risk for thrombosis. That's why the Indian population has the higher content of this lipoprotein A. Very, very important. Okay, so obviously there is a risk of coronary artery disease. Now, when I say coronary artery, guys, it means that the artery is supplying the heart, right? And even it again will increase the risk of the cerebrovascular accidents, right? So, yeah. Hmm. So that is something you have to like remember. Okay. Hmm. Now we have like spoken a lot about this LDL, HDL, the lipid transport. I'll be like covering it in detail about the apolipoproteins also. So that was regarding the very first question. The second question says compare and contrast the LDL and HDL in terms of structure and function. Now, now guys, let us just try to understand what are the basic differences between LDL and HDL. LDL, you already know it is called as the low density lipoprotein. Low density lipoprotein. And HDL, we have the high density lipoprotein. High density lipoprotein. Now, what is the primary function of HDL, guys, over here? You are very well aware that the primary function of the LDL, the low density lipoprotein, it transports, we have already discussed this, cholesterol from liver to peripheral tissues, right? Now, the primary function of HDL, I have already told you, it is involved in the reverse cholesterol transport. Reverse cholesterol transport. It is bringing back the cholesterol to the liver, right? So, yes, carrying excess cholesterol from tissues back to liver. That's why it is called as the good cholesterol. And yes, the LDL, it is called as the bad cholesterol. Carrying, yes, excess cholesterol from tissues to liver. From tissues to liver. That's why it is called as good cholesterol, right? So that is regarding the function, the main function, the primary function, if you ask me, guys, the primary function, right? Now, okay. If you guys ask me what is the density, you already know it is having the lower density. The lower density, if I'm not talking about the structure, guys, the lower density due to higher lipid protein ratio, right? And it is obviously this is having higher density. Higher density. right? Higher density. Now, what is the composition, guys? If we talk about the structural part over here, the composition, if I just want to like tabulate, now it is composed of cholesterol, esters, and guys, we have the triglycerol, or commonly called as the triglycerides, right? And along with that, we have the apolipoprotein P100 molecule on its surface, right? Coming on to the this fella part, you already know it is containing apolipoprotein. So it contains a higher density, means it contains a higher amount of protein, and the protein that is the apolipoprotein, that is A1, okay, and apolipoprotein A2, and less cholesterol, guys, right? And even the less triacylglycerol or the triglycerides as compared to LDL, as compared to LDL, right? Now, if we talk about simply about the shape also, guys, the shape, remember it is having a spherical structure, right? That carries more lipids as compared to proteins. Obviously, it is having a lower density. We have more lipids as compared to proteins. And over here, remember, it is a more complex structure. More complex structure. Now, when I say more complex, it means a discoidal type of a structure, or more like discoidal structure. So depending upon the maturation stage, guys, obviously it is having more higher density. So obviously the protein content, it is far more than the lipid one, right? So that is something you have to remember. Now coming on to the function, guys, function of LDL and HDL. Let us the main function, guys, you already know. The main function you already know for the both the part. But if I just want to like enumerate more, if we talk about the function, now if I'm just talking about LDL over here, LDL. Now this LDL, the primary function is transport cholesterol from the liver to the peripheral tissues, right? Now what is the clinical significance, guys? The clinical significance. Now if there is high levels of LDL, okay, now low density lipoproteins, if there are more in the blood vessel, then it will increase the risk of, okay, atherosclerosis, atherosclerosis, okay, and increase atherosclerosis, cardiovascular disorder. Cardio means heart, vascular means the blood vessels, the arteries and veins which are supplying the heart. Obviously, there will be plaque formation. The blood supply will be decreased. So the heart supply will be hampered. Okay, so increased LDL is always a risk for cardiovascular disorder. That's why this is very, very important that you cannot like uh, function. On the other hand, if you talk about HDL, if HDL is increased, obviously it is there is reduced risk of cardiovascular disorder, cardiovascular disorders, right? So HDL can protect against atherosclerosis, right? And this cannot, right? So that is something that you have to like remember, right? Now, I hope this is clear, guys. I hope this is clear, Vikas. Just give me a thumbs up. If the LDL and HDL, the basic function, density, lipoproteins, and the clinical significance, in short, it is clear. More information you can just, anyway, yeah. Now, the question says, discuss the importance of apolipoproteins. Okay. Now, yeah, in the function of the lipoproteins, guys, let us just in one line, I will be mentioning all the functions of apolipoproteins. As of now, just try to remember in the metabolism when we will be discussing it, it will again come, right? We have ApoC1. Now, this ApoC1, it inhibits cholesterol ester transfer protein. We have apoprotein C3, and remember it inhibits lipoprotein lipase. Again, these all will be cleared when I will be discussing the metabolism. As of now, you just have to remember because this question has been included, so I just have to cover it. I will be covering it again. ApoA2, again, it inhibits the lipoprotein lipase. That is one of the function that you have to remember, right? ApoA5. Now, what does it do? It facilitates binding of chylomicron and VLDL to lipoprotein lipase, right? Apo, okay, C2, guys. So remember this ApoC2, it activates the lipoprotein lipase. Lipoprotein lipase, right? Again, we have apoprotein D. And remember, guys, this is associated with human neurodegenerative disease. Degenerative disease. And remember that is the Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease, right? Yes. Again, we have also discussed ApoB100. So remember this apoprotein, like this B100, it acts as a ligand for the low density lipoprotein, and it is also an indication of the assembly of very low density lipoproteins, right? Even ApoB48. So it is, yes, assembly of chylomicrons in intestine. Assembly of chylomicrons in intestine, right? So yes, we have ApoE also, guys. ApoE, basically it is a ligand for chylomicron. Okay. So yes, it is arginine rich. ApoE4, again, it is associated with late onset Alzheimer's disease. So these are basic functions, guys, that you have to just remember over here, right? So apolipoproteins, basically they provide the structural framework, okay, for lipoproteins, ensuring their stability or in the bloodstream. So basically they help to maintain the proper shape, guys, proper integrity of the lipoprotein particles. Yeah. So yes, they are helping in the lipid transport by binding and loading, right? So basically, they facilitate the loading of lipids. For example, you already know about the triglycerides, the cholesterol into lipoproteins during their synthesis in the intestine and liver. Okay, and again, the redistribution from intestine to peripheral organs or from liver to the peripheral organs. So this is all done by these lipoproteins, right? Even they also help in the receptor recognition, guys. We'll be discussing in the metabolism also. It helps in the receptor recognition. Okay. So apolipoproteins, basically they act as a ligand for receptor recognition, right? So for example, ApoB100, I have already told you it acts as a ligand for low density lipids, right? So yes. Now ApoB100, guys, what does it do? It ApoB100 on LDL, the low density lipoprotein, it binds to the LDL receptor. And what it will do, it will promote the cholesterol uptake by the cells, right? So that is something that you have to remember over here. So that was regarding the importance of apolipoproteins. Coming on to the next question, define the phospholipids and explain their role in the membrane structure. This is, I think you guys already know. The phospholipids are having the head part, the tail parts, right? The head, it is water loving, right? The tail, it is like water repelling, or it is more lipophilic, that it is lipid soluble, right? Or water heating part. And they are arranged as lipid bilayer, right? And you already know the head part contains the phosphate ions, right? That attracts the water towards it, right? So this is the membrane structure that we have just like discussed yesterday as well in yesterday's session. Coming on to the last question for today, what are saturated and unsaturated fatty acids? Give example. So you already know the saturated fatty acids, they are the ones with hydrogen and with like no double bonds. They are having only single bonds. They are having straight hydrocarbon chains, and they mostly contain like 12 to 22 carbon atoms. Unsaturated fatty acids are the fatty acids that contain one or more than one double bonds, right? Apart from that, they can be either monounsaturated or polyunsaturated fatty acids. They are liquid at room temperature, and they are abundant in fish, and they reduce the risk of coronary heart diseases. Coronary heart diseases. So that is the basic classification. The saturated fats and the unsaturated, which is divided into polyunsaturated fatty acids and monounsaturated fatty acids. Polyunsaturated omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6 fatty acids, and monounsaturated omega-9 fatty acids. Right? So that is something you just have to remember. And this is something which you have done earlier also. So there is nothing new that has been taught like in this particular question. So saturated, unsaturated, you like already know. So that okay. Now, would you like to answer this question, Vikas? Which of the following lipoprotein is referred to as bad cholesterol? So we have just talked about this in today's session. Hmm. Bad cholesterol is LDL. If you can just answer what is the good cholesterol, Vikas? What is the good cholesterol? Very good. HDL, it is the good cholesterol. LDL, it is the bad cholesterol. Okay, very good. Now, why HDL is called as the good cholesterol? Can you tell me, Vikas, why HDL is called as the good cholesterol? Because it removes the cholesterol from tissues to the liver. Very good. It removes the cholesterol from tissues to the liver. From tissues, the excess cholesterol goes into the liver, right? Coming on to the third one, which apolipoprotein is primarily associated with HDL particles? Tell me, this we have already done. That is ApoA1, ApoA2, right? LDL particles are mainly composed of, we have already discussed, they are either cholesterol or cholesterol esters. Cholesterol or cholesterol esters. Which of the following lipoprotein has the highest protein content? We have already talked to you. Highest protein content means the highest density. Highest density, and highest density it is associated with HDL. Very good, Vikas. So these are all the questions that have been asked, right? Which apolipoprotein is essential for the uptake of LDL by LDL receptors? We have just taken this, guys. It is ApoB100. We have just discussed this. It is ApoB100, right? Saturated fatty acids are characterized by they are having no double bonds between carbon atoms. They are having no double bonds between carbon atoms. They are only single bonds, right? Phospholipids are amphipathic, guys. You already know they have a hydrophobic fatty acid tail. I've just told you these tails are hydrophobic, water heating, lipid loving, lipophilic tails, right? and hydrophilic, water-loving head, because they contain phosphate, right? They contain phosphate. Yes, because right. Which lipoprotein is responsible for transporting dietary lipids from the intestine to the other tissues? This is, I think you already know the very first one which we have discussed, Vikas. Yes, very good. It is the chylomicron. See, it's very easy, right? Which fatty acid is unsaturated? You already know it is the linoleic acid. Linoleic acid. So these are all the 10 questions that we have discussed very shortly, right? So yes, from all the concepts that we have discussed today, it is like all the questions we can do, right? So thank you for your patience, for listening me out. And these are the various social media handles, guys, you can follow over there, and just you can get the update. Thank you.